First Sabbath series. Discover the stories. Explore the legacy. Be part of the conversation. Your hosts, Dana C. Edmond, Rebecca Jackson, and Gerson Pancorbo. This month, we will talk with Dr. Brown about Oakwood University. First Sabbath series.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to First Sabbath for September. We are just so excited to have the president of our school, the new president of our school, Dr. Gina Brown, with us. We're going to meet her in just a few seconds. But first, let's invite God's presence in our meeting today. Elder Pancorbo, I'm going to ask you to pray, please.
Of course, let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this day, for the opportunity of being here. Thank you for this beautiful Sabbath that we can enjoy. Thank you for the opportunity of talk with Dr. Brown and about Oakwood University. Help us drive our conversation so we can bring clarity and know why, and we need to send our people and we need to enjoy education, Adventist education in Oakwood University. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. We are, as I said earlier, we are privileged to have the president of our school. If you have been with First Sabbath, and I think this is probably our 5th year doing it, if you have been a part of First Sabbath, you know that there are certain interviews that we do on a yearly basis. We talk to the regional presidents on a yearly basis. We talk to the regional conference superintendents on a yearly basis. And we talk to the president of Oakwood on a yearly basis. And so we are happy to have, for the very first time, but hopefully not the last time, the newly elected president of our school, Dr. Gina S. Brown. And let's bring Dr. Brown on. Dr. Brown, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to be here.
We are so honored that you would take time. I know your time is precious, and so giving us this time is a privilege, and we're very grateful. Let's get started by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself. I'm going to ask you 3 questions.
Sure.
Okay, here's the first one. Tell us about your family pre-children, your siblings, where you were born, that kind of thing.
All right. So family pre-children. And first of all, Dr. Mann, thank you so much for your having me on the program. I count it an honor and a privilege to be here on First Sabbath, and particularly to be here after 65 days of being in the office as president. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this process and for allowing me to talk so that the community can get to know me and hopefully I can get to know the community. My family pre-children, pre-marriage. I grew up in Norfolk, Virginia. I have 4 siblings, 1 sister and 3 brothers. The order is brother, sister, myself, and 1 brother. And when I was about 12 or 13, we moved from Norfolk to Suffolk, but continued to go to church in Norfolk at the Campusella Heights SDA Church, which is where I was married and which I still consider my home and family church. My siblings and I are still very close. Both my parents are deceased, but my siblings and I are still very close. We communicate on text pretty much almost daily, with the exception of 1. He doesn't text too much, but we have monthly calls and we talk to each other even before our parents died. As they were aging, we would have monthly calls about the parents, and then we continued to do that. And even after the parents died, and they died about 9 years apart, even after they died, we continued those calls and text messages and all of that. So we still keep in touch very closely. 2 of my siblings live in Norfolk, still live there. 1 lives in North Carolina. Well, actually, the other 2 live in North Carolina because 1 just moved to North Carolina. So 2 in Virginia and 2 in Norfolk. And of course, I'm now here in Huntsville.
Okay, I went to school with a Renee Spivey.
That is my sister.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
That is my older sister who I love dearly and my only sister. And she came to Oakwood before me. And that's one of the reasons I didn't come freshman year, because everybody knew her. And I was like, I'm not coming to Oakwood with everybody, with her being there all those years and all of that. But I ended up transferring after my freshman year at La Sierra to Oakwood, and never regretted it and never looked back.
Okay, I tell my children that I actually had a life before them. But let's talk about your family in terms of your children. Tell us, do you
Sure.
have
So
children?
I have two wonderful children. My son, Bronson Brown III, is the oldest, and he is a nurse, which I'm very proud about. He lives in Northern California with his wife, Natalie Williams Brown, both Oakwoodites, both nurses, and she's an open heart nurse. And they both live in Northern California together, no children. And then I have a daughter who's actually an Oakwoodite as well, Blair Elaine. Her married name is Marley, and Blair's an attorney for a Fortune 100 company in North Carolina. And her husband, who's Adventist but did not go to Oakwood, we tease him about that all the time. His name is Dr. Andrew Marley. He's an epidemiologist. And then they gave me the gift of a wonderful grandson, Anderson, who actually just turned 4 and is the actual love of my life.
All right, you sound like Mrs. Edmond in terms of being absolutely pitiful when it comes to grandchildren. So are you pitiful, Dr. Brown?
I am so pitiful. I am so pitiful. If during the inauguration he said, "Gigi, come and get me," I may have to leave the stage and go pick him up and bring him up. He's such a sweetie pie. And I will share one family secret. Every time I go to their house, he gets to sleep with me every Friday night. So his treat is to sleep in the bed with Gigi. And so I don't get rest on any Friday night that I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, or on vacation. He tries to do that as well. But that is my Anderson, and I'm his Gigi, and we are bonded at the hip.
Understood. Okay. Lastly, tell us about your education.
Education. So I went to public school all of my life. When I was in 3rd grade, my mother tried to put us in Adventist school, and she had 5 children. And at the middle of the year, she couldn't pay the tuition, and we got put out of church school. And I say to people all the time, this is why I have such a passion for church school and for raising money for students, because no student should ever get put out of church school. Somebody in that church should have enough money, enough insight, enough whatever to make sure that a child does not get put out of church school. But I'll tell you, it was very pivotal in my life for that to occur, because what occurred was that it allowed me to understand the hurt of that and what that felt like. And in understanding the hurt of that and what that felt like, it made me not want any child to ever go through that. And so when I was in high school, I tried to get into Pine Forge. My mother had gone to Pine Forge. She was a 4-year graduate, and she loved Pine Forge, but she didn't have any money to send us. I would write letters to the president at that time and write letters to the principal, and nobody would respond to me telling them how I wanted to go to school. And I would mention some people from our church who were as poor as we were, but they went to Pine Forge and they worked all summer and they paid for it and they made it through. But I don't think it was the Lord's will for me to go to Pine Forge during that season. And I have to talk about why in a few, but I didn't get any sponsorship and didn't get to attend Pine Forge. And so by the time it was time for me to go to college, I had such a hunger for Adventist education that I only applied to Adventist schools. I applied to 7 Adventist colleges and I got into all 7. But I chose Loma Linda for 2 reasons. One, my sister was already at Oakwood. Number 2, Loma Linda La Sierra was offering me more scholarship money than anybody. And so I went to the money. I went where the money went. I had a very high GPA coming out of high school. And so because of that, they chose me and they gave me a lot of money. And so I went to California. And I loved my year at La Sierra. It was great. I had some friends that are still my friends to this day from there. Had a good experience there that year. I understand why the Lord allowed that and used that, because years later, I worked at Loma Linda at the School of Nursing. Had I not have been a student at La Sierra, God always puts things in place. Had I not have been a student at La Sierra, I would have been very tentative about taking the job and working in California. But because I knew what it was like, I had lived there for a year, it was much easier for me to accept that position at Loma Linda and to work there for the 4.5 years that I did, which was a great experience and actually gave me some of the things that I needed to use for Oakwood. So everything God puts in place. The thing about Pine Forge, and I said, talking about later, had I gone to Pine Forge, it may not have made me want to go to an Adventist college. And so the Lord used me not being able to go to Pine Forge and getting put out of school younger to propel me to only want to go to an Adventist college. So I went to La Sierra my first year, transferred the second year to Oakwood because I said, okay, it's time to go. Wanted to have that experience, and got to Oakwood, and my sister was her senior year at that point, and I absolutely loved Oakwood. It was just phenomenal. The friends that I have, my closest friends are still with me from Oakwood, roommates, and all of that are still my closest friends to this day. And did a double major in nursing and biology, finished the nursing first, and then stayed the next year and finished a degree in biology because my thought process was to actually go to medical school. And so I knew my parents were poor. They weren't going to be able to pay for it. And so if I did the biology for medical school, did the nursing in order to make money for medical school, be a win-win. So I started out as an mental health nurse, and then joined ICU and got to be an ICU nurse and loved it. Absolutely loved it, and said, why be a doctor when you can be a nurse and not have any more debt? And so I went to when I graduated from Oakwood, I immediately went to the DC area because I was going to do some coursework at Howard, which I actually did to prepare for medical school, but I actually got a job working in mental health first. And a person which you might know, whose name was H.P. Sterling, was the administrator of a place called Chestnut Lodge. It was a very private mental health institution. And this is the Adventist, as they would say, the Adventist connection again. A person by the name of Yvonne Wagner, who was one of my church family members, talked to HP and said, hey, she's a new graduate from Oakwood. Do you want to try her out? HP hired me and actually worked for Chestnut Lodge for him for 3 years. And then because nursing, I wasn't married and having kids at that point, I then signed up to be an ICU nurse and took that training at the same time. So I worked as a mental health nurse and an ICU nurse at the same time with that diversification of those pieces. And so subsequently got married, did a master's degree at Central Michigan University. Great experience there. I was working in ICU that entire time that I was actually doing that. And then from there, I actually became a nurse recruiter, where I recruited nurses and started learning that skill. God gave me that skill so that I would know later how to recruit students. It all rolls together. And so then from there, I actually decided to go back to school and do a Ph.D. in nursing so that I would have the educational background. In doing that, he sent me to George Mason University, which I had to drive to 3 to 4 times a week. And one of the things that God taught me there was, I said to him, I don't want to go into any more debt. I have debt from Oakwood. I have debt from a master's. I don't want to go into any debt doing a Ph.D. And I talked to the Lord about it. And he said, call unto me and I will show you great and mighty things, which thou knowest not. Jeremiah 33:3. And so in going through that experience, I just told the Lord, I don't want to do any student loans. And the Lord funded my entire education of my PhD, but he did it in faith building increments. So he funded the first year completely, no issue. The second year, he funded the first semester. Then he funded the second semester. Then the third year, because now I'm ingrained in it, he funded, I went to class late, nothing was funded. And I said, I'm not taking any student loans. I had 2 children in church school at that time, and just said, I'm not going to take any student loans. I remember returning my tithe and offering and putting it on top of the microwave, and I was cleaning the house for Friday. And I said, Lord, I don't know what to do about this, but I went to class and they said, Gina Brown? And I said, yes. And they said, is there anybody here? There's only 7 of us that are in the PhD program that does not, whose name we did not call. I raised my hand. I said, Gina Brown. And they said, you're not on the list to be registered. I said, I'll be on it next week. No idea how I was going to be on it next week. No idea what was going to happen, but I just knew I had talked to God about it and he was going to work it out. And so as I had taken my tithe and put it on top of the microwave, and I'm sweeping the floor in the kitchen, and it's like the Lord had told me the night before, call the general conference. And when you call the general conference, I want you to ask for this. He'd give me a dream. And in the dream, I had a big publisher's clearinghouse check. And that happened to me twice in life. And I'll tell you about that one later. So he said, call the general conference and show me on the publisher's clearinghouse check the amount that I needed for tuition in order to get registered. And he said, ask about this and this and this. And so the next day I called and I told him what my name was. And I was looking for money for funding for a graduate student in nursing, blah, blah, blah. And they connected me through a series of offices. When I finally got to the last office, I told them what I wanted. And they said, well, we do have a scholarship fund for Adventists who are going back to school for higher education. And they told me to fill out the application. They faxed it to me. I filled it out. And the amount that they gave me was enough to clear that semester. And it was the amount on the publisher's clearinghouse check. So I knew the Lord was, again, driving me through this process. So I eventually finished school. It took me about 5 years, which is about average for a Ph.D. And when I got out, of course, I didn't have any debt from the Ph.D. program because the Lord had paid the entire program. So as I was looking at places to work, I wanted to work in an academic institution, but I didn't want to work for the Adventists because I knew the Adventists didn't pay anything. And I had been making good money as a nurse, and I just did not want to work for the Adventists. So one night I went to bed and the Lord said to me, so do you think you're too good to work for the Adventists? And I was like, no, I don't, but I just don't want to work for the Adventists. They don't pay any money. And then he shows me another publisher's clearinghouse check. And he put on that check $44,900. And I was like, that's half of what I make part-time. So I don't know what the meaning is to this check. So I was asked to come to, at that time, what was Columbia Union College, to speak for a conference on an ethics component. And one of the PhD components that I did was in ethics. And so I spoke on this Keogh series and spoke on a Sabbath afternoon about ethics and blah, blah, blah. And two of the people, one is actually the provost at Southern right now, another person, they looked at me and they talked to me and they were like, would you consider working here? And I was like, no, only to like teach a class or two, but nothing full time. I was not going to work for the Adventists. And the Lord came back to me again and was like, so you think you're too good to work for the Adventists? And I was like, no, I just know the Adventists don't pay any money. They came back and they offered me a position as an associate chair of nursing. Guess what the salary was?
For $44,900.
Exactly what the salary was. And I was like, oh. So I took the job and I said to the Lord, I'm accustomed now to a different lifestyle. I don't want. And he said, you won't miss anything. It's going to be fine. You won't miss anything. And so in 1999, I started working as the associate chair at Columbia Union College. And the chair resigned 3 months later to get married. And it was like, what? And so I immediately then became the chair. And I worked as a chair for 6 years. And I have to tell you, I absolutely loved it. It was one of the best jobs and one of the best things that I had ever done. And I was like, Lord, I'm so glad I obeyed you. It's like, yeah, okay, right. And so I worked there and I worked for President Randall Wisby, who eventually went to La Sierra. Great experience, great working piece, and just had a really great time working there. And then my 7th year, I was transferred to, they asked me if I would take over the School of Graduate and Professional Studies. And so I took over the Graduate Professional Studies. They had one graduate program. And the Lord allowed me to write the curriculum for 7 additional graduate programs within a 3-year period. And so we started 8 programs, with 8 programs going within 3 years. And so because of that, then they were like, okay, after 3 years, they're like, okay, we need you to move to another deanship because you've successfully done this one, move to another one. So they then had me move to the Dean for Health Professions and to start the process for the university, for the college to become a university. So I did all the curriculum for that. And that's when it went from Columbia Union College to Washington Adventist University. Finished that up and stayed there, as we would say, 12 years a slave, and was on the board of Loma Linda as a board member for its 14 hospitals at that point, 7 that were inland and 7 that were out externally, and would go to board meeting for Loma Linda and had a great experience there. And while I was there in one of the board meetings, the dean of nursing said to me, would you come to speak with us as a graduation speaker next year? So she asked me this in like July of the year for the next year. So I was like, sure. And so she asked me for my email address, and I gave it to her, but I didn't give her my WAU email address. And she said, why not? And I said, because I'm not going to be there next year. And she said, where are you going to be? I said, I don't know, but I know I'm not going to be there because the Lord had me cleaning my office all summer, preparing to do something different. I just knew I was going to be leaving. I didn't know where I was going to go. I didn't know where God was sending me, but I just knew it was the Abraham. It was time to pack it up. So I packed my office all summer, not applying for any jobs, not looking for it, just knowing it's time to go. And so when in August, she called me. Well, she said to me, you said you're leaving, but you don't know where you're going. And I said, no. And she said, so would you consider Loma Linda? And I said, no, I don't want to move to California. And she said, well, why don't you just consider it? And I said, I don't want to move to California. So we talked about it some more. And she said, you and your husband come out and spend a couple of days with us. And let's just talk about what this could look like. So free trip. Who's not going? So we went and went out, and they interviewed me for 2 days. And they called me the day after that. Doctoral program for us. And I said, well, I would love to do that. I love starting new programs, but I'm not moving to California. And they said, let's try something different. And this is God again moving as you start to see God's movement again. It said, let's do remote learning. There was no such thing as remote learning in 2011. It didn't exist. I said, let's do remote learning. You'll come to California X amount of times, and you'll do the rest of your work from Maryland, and then we'll fly you out when we need you to do X, Y, and Z. And then we'll pay you this and this and this. And I was like, boom, there's the answer. So I stopped working at Washington Adventist, started at Loma Linda the next month, and worked there for 4.5 years and flew back and forth to California from Washington and absolutely loved it. I kept saying, Lord, this job is so good. My next job must be really bad because you're giving me such a great job in these 4 years. This is just, they're paying me to do something I love. Started a program, got through more than 39 students to complete their doctoral degree. From starting the program, it was just fabulous. So at the end of that 4.5 years, as I was in my happy place at Loma Linda, there was a job on LinkedIn for the Dean of Nursing and Allied Health Sciences at Howard University. And of course, I had familiarity with Howard because I'd taken some graduate classes there, but nothing more than that. So 3 people who didn't know each other said to me, you could actually consider this job. And so I was like, when the 3rd person said it, who was my mentor, said, you should actually consider this job. And I said, okay. So I sent my CV in, and it went through like a 4-month component of interviews and this, that, and the other. I didn't really care whether I got it or not because I was still very happy at Loma Linda. And at the end of the 4 months, they said to me, you're our number 1 candidate. Now I'll show you how God moves again. I had sat on Loma Linda's board, which gave me board insight for how to be on a board. I sat on a board for Adventist Healthcare, which gave me for 5 years, which gave me additional board insight. I recruited nurses internationally for Adventist Healthcare, which gave me international experience going from country to country and place to place to do that type of recruitment. When he gave me the recruitment job that was in Washington, D.C. You see God just layering and stacking things on top of each other to prepare me for what he wanted me to do. So at this point, I get to the point of saying, okay, I'll consider it. And they sent me out to dinner one night with the dean of dentistry. And he says, we only need you to work one Saturday night. One Saturday a year. That's it. And I was like, no, I don't work any Saturdays. And it's like, no, it's for graduation. And you need to work. When we went out to dinner, and I gave him a whole Bible study on the Sabbath. And why don't, and after he was like, okay, fine. You would give up this job, this 6-figure job that we're going to offer you for one Saturday a year? And I said, yes. And I explained to him why. So as we go through this component of that, they offer me the job. They won't put in writing that I don't have to do Sabbath, but they say, we'll honor it. And next thing you know, they're asking me to do different things on Saturday. And I'm like, nope, can't do it. And so there was no issue until the next fall, the next summer, when they were going to do graduation, and Barack Obama was speaking as a speaker. And I've always wanted to meet Barack Obama, but didn't go to graduation. And so then my president called me in and said, what's the deal on the Sabbath? Tell me about it. But anyway, stayed there. The experiences that I had at Loma Linda for that 4.5 years prepared me for Howard. And then being at Howard for the last 10 years prepared me for Oakwood. And so at the end of that 10-year period of being at Howard and being happy to be at Howard and just all of those components, I felt that the needs that Oakwood had at this time were the needs and things that God had trained me to do from all of the different jobs and the different experiences. God had trained me to do these things because of what's actually there.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Brown. While serving as the Dean of the School of Nursing at Howard, we've seen that the enrollment during your tenure more than doubled. True?
True.
So how did you achieve that, and how you can transfer that to Oakwood?
So it was God, definitely God. But I started to look at where the programs were, where the strengths and weaknesses were in the programs, made every program do a SWOT analysis, and then worked on the weaknesses for those programs. So one of the things that I'll do at Oakwood is to look at every program, see where the weaknesses are, see what needs to be fixed, and see how we can increase our enrollment. So I will say to you, probably between biology and business are two of our strongest programs at Oakwood right now. They have great enrollment, they have a great number of students and components. However, there's some internship components that can be added into that. There's some other work components that can be added into that. So we'll strengthen the strong ones so they can carry the ones that are not as strong. When I look at nursing at Oakwood, in addition to that, there's some strengths that they need to have because nursing could be one of your largest and strongest programs at any institution. So we'll work on where those strengths and weaknesses are in order to build those. So those factors, once we work the provost and the academic leadership to talk to them about how to make those changes, how to actually take the program up, how to actually become U.S. News and World Report programs where those things make a difference. All of that are pieces that really make a difference.
Thank you. We're going to ask you in a little while about some challenges and controversy that you have had during your 65 days at Oakwood. But let's work the opposite side of the street first. Please tell us about some of the good things that are already happening at Oakwood.
Well, today we announced in church that we were able to raise within 60 days over $500,000.
Congratulations.
Wow.
That's the Lord. That's nothing but the Lord. There's no pixie dust that I sprinkled on anything. I prayed, the congregation and the people in the world answered, and God blessed us. And we believe that God will continue to bless us. If we could do that in 60 days to try to help with tuitions, certainly we can do some other things to make a difference. So that would be one of the strengths that we've had. Another one would be to meet our enrollment target, which we were very concerned about. I wasn't here when they recruited for enrollment. Once I came in and we started trying to put things in place, we were able to kind of work on that and figure out where we were. And so we've been able to work on that to make sure that we make our enrollment target and to make the difference in those numbers. And that, again, has been a complete team effort from everybody at Oakwood in terms of where we are. Another piece that we've had in terms of a victory would be really trying to make sure that the students who did cleared it at 80%. And that's a big deal because some years Oakwood has had the enrollment, but the students didn't clear at 80%, which means they would hire higher leftover balances and they wouldn't be to meet those. We still have students now who have higher leftover balances that they have not been able to meet. So our thing was to make sure that we cleared every student at 80% so that as they move through the process, they only have the 20% left in order to make sure that they get through school. So I would say those are three of the major components that God has given us. I would say another is being able to try to go to student fairs and different student components. So I've been able to try to attend student sports games. I try to eat in the cafeteria, if not 5 days a week, probably 4. I sit with the students. I talk to the students. I try to build relationship with the students. We just had our first town hall last Tuesday night with the USM and the students we had in there. And so really trying to make a difference in terms of where we are and what we're trying to do, all those things, trying to build relationships with them and the community as a whole are the things that I would say in the first 65 days have made a difference.
Okay, we need to mention, and I forgot to do this at the beginning, if there are questions from the audience, we would be happy to receive them. We already got one. So let me ask you about online school, and is that an option going forward?
We have a robust online program. And this is one of the things that we have to do at Oakwood, and that is to really make sure that people know what we have. That program is called LEAP, LEAP. And the LEAP program is for anybody who has not completed their undergraduate degree. It's a wonderful program in that some of it's asynchronous in that they do the work on their own. Some of it's in actual classrooms, but it's all 100% online. And they graduate with a Oakwood degree. And then we have 4 graduate programs, our Masters of Divinity. Well, it's actually a master's in religious art component. We have social work, and I'll tell you what the other 2 are in a minute. And those are all online as well. MPH, our MPH program, those are all online as well. So Oakwood has a product, some great products that nobody seems to know about. And we're going to do our best to push those out so that people will know about our wonderful products and what it is we actually offer.
Okay, Elder Pancorbo asked you about the things you're excited about. I get to be the bad guy.
All right.
And asked you about the controversies and the challenges. You ready?
I am ready.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you about 3 things.
Okay.
Number 1, your no jewelry policy, which ironically we have in our office.
Okay.
And I remember the drama the first time I had to enforce it. So I feel you. Okay, so talk to us about the no jewelry policy. What is it? Why did you decide to have it? Talk to us about that.
All right. So first of all, it's not my policy. It's a policy that's been at Oakwood in the handbooks and from time eternal for 129 years. It's the same policy. It used to be enforced, and for whatever reason, because of the pressure points and things that were there, it was no longer enforced. And so as I was praying about this job, there were some specific things that God gave to me that I needed to do in order to come in. And one was to clean up the finances of the institution. 2 was to make sure that students felt that they were a priority. The 3rd one was to make sure that faculty and staff understood their role as being a priority. The 4th one was to reinstitute biblical values of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And the 5th one was to include in that reinstatement of those Sabbath worship and our dress and our modesty dress, our dress and modesty. So I find it ironic that people at an Adventist school don't understand why we want them to go to church and why we want them to not wear jewelry. I find that very ironic. It's just amazing to me that I just finished talking to a group of students saying to them, if we're a faith-based institution and we are a Seventh-day Adventist institution, I'm confused on why this becomes an issue. This is who we are. And if you don't like the standards, maybe this is not who you should be. But these are the standards of the church. I didn't make them for Oakwood. I didn't make them for the North American Division. I didn't make them for anybody. I simply said, I'm going to follow what it is that we have as a church. And a lot of the kids said, okay, well, Andrews doesn't have it and La Sierra doesn't have it. And that's not necessarily a good example because you can see some differences in where we actually are and the differences in what we do as an Adventist institution. So it really, I guess for me, I'm behooved at the fact that we have to explain to our constituency why we do what it is we do. We are, without apology, a Seventh-day Adventist institution of higher education. It's who we are. It's what we believe in. It's our standard. It's our brand. We may not like all the things that are actually there. But my job is not to pick and choose what I like and what I don't like. I can't pick that I'm going to eat pork and not enforce jury. I can't pick that I'm going to not enforce jury and eat pork. I can't pick that I'm going to not keep the Sabbath. I'm going to use Sunday for Sabbath, but I'm going to use Tuesday for my worship day. These are not arbitrary things that have just come up. My job as the watchman, my job as the president, my job as what God has put me there to do is to really, and I hate to use the form of primitive godliness, because then people think that you're trying to make them dress like Ellen White and you're trying to do this, but it's really to be a peculiar people, to be the head and not the tail, to be above and not beneath, to look like, not like the world looks, because that's not who we are, but to really carry ourselves in such a way that people know we're different by our look, by what we wear, by what we dress, by the days we go to church. We are to stand for the standards of the Adventist Church and what we believe in with that. And so for that, I make no apology. It's just that people are going to have to really get used to what it is that we're supposed to be doing as an Adventist institution. We need to either change our life or change our name. If we're not going to be an Adventist institution, not be one. But we can't pick and choose what we want to do and what we don't want to do. We can't pick and choose that we're going to keep the Sabbath, but we're going to eat pork. These are the standards of our church. It's who we are and it's what we do.
Okay, here's question number 2, and you actually referenced it already, but I'll ask a specific question. You closed the dormitories
From 11 to 1.
From 11 to 1. Okay, so there has been on Facebook, as one of my predecessors in South Central used to say, weeping and gnashing of teeth over closing the, we're making students go to church, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
You're asking all the right questions today, and I'm so happy we're having this conversation. So first of all, we are closing the residence halls from 11 to 1. We are a Seventh-day Adventist institution of higher learning. Our residents, RAs want to go to church. Our deans want to go to church. And we're not making our students go to church. We simply close the residence hall. We give them options on closing the residence halls. I'll give you an example today. The residence hall is closed from 11 to 1. The students have to depart unless they're sick. If they're sick, they need to simply let their RA know and their dean know, and they will work out coverage for somebody to be in the residence hall with them. Now, you may say to me, what if a student fakes sick for 15 weeks? Because that's how many weeks it is in a semester. That is between them and God. But woe unto you if you fake sick 15 weeks in a row because you didn't want to go to church, because it's going to be between you and God. God never forces himself on any of us. So if a person wants to lie and say, I'm sick 15 weeks in a row, they're going to stay in the residence hall 15 weeks in a row. The only way they can stay in the residence hall is sickness. And if the weather is severely bad. So if the weather's bad in the wintertime, we're not going to close the residence halls from 11 to 1. We'll watch church on TV or whatever. Now, what can they do from 11 to 1? Well, we have some students who actually go to work from 11 to 1. That's what they choose to do. They would have chosen to do that whether they were in the residence hall or not. We have some students who choose to go to church. We have some students who choose to go to Madison Mission, First Church, Oakwood, Mount Calvary. They go wherever. We have some students who choose to go for a nature walk for 2 hours. We have some students who choose to go sit in a park in Huntsville for 2 hours. We have some students that choose to go to Blake Center, where we've opened up a cafe style place where they can sit around, lay around, listen to their devices. They may want to watch their own home church service on their devices. I pay for that. I pay for that coverage, and I pay for them to have food from the 11 to 1 time period to give them an option of not wanting to do traditional worship. And we have a chaperone there. We have security that comes through so that if they don't want to go to traditional church, they don't have to. But we urge them to go to church. We don't press them to go to church. We don't mark them off if they don't go to church, but they must leave the residence hall unless they're ill from 11 to 1. So hopefully that gives more clarity on us not making them go to church, but having them to get out of themselves, commune with God, commune with nature, go for a walk, go for a hike. If they want to go for a ride, whatever, if they want to walk around. We had, I think, one or two students, I think it was one, who decided that she was going to show us, and she was going to lay on a picnic bench for the 2 hours outside the residence hall. And she told everybody that she was laying on the bench because she was put outside of her dorm and she had nowhere to go, which is simply not true. We have places for them to go. They can go to Blake. They even get food when they go there. Today, it was, I think, tangerines, tangelos, apples, other fruit, snack bars, juice and water, quiet music playing. It's devotion for them to sit and to think. There are about 35 students there today. And there was also a great number of students who turned out to Oakwood Church today. So we offer the option. And there's students who, I talked to 3 students that were leaving campus to go somewhere else. I said, where are you guys going? Are you going to eat? They said, yes, among that, but we're going to do a few other things first. So we're not making students go to church. Well, we are closing the residence halls to try to impress upon them the importance of having a relationship with Jesus the Christ and to understand who we are as an Adventist institution and to understand our thought process as an Adventist institution.
Okay, thank you. That was pretty clear. Now, from the frying pan into the fire.
Okay.
What can you tell us about the finances of your school?
So we made our budget as of June 30th. We're in the black for the first time in a number of years. There was a number of cost-cutting measures in the North American division. The regional conferences, as you well know, gave some significant funding to Oakwood in order for us to get to the next level. Bills of $9 million. Today we had 2,000.
Okay, Dr. Brown, we are having some technical issues right as we were talking about money. That may that may be on purpose. Okay, she's coming back.
You hear me?
Okay, Dr. Brown. Okay, hold on. We're still having technical issues.
We're having a storm here in Elder Edmond.
Okay.
So maybe that's affecting.
This when we first started doing these programs, it started during the pandemic, and we were doing a online convocation, and the preacher was just wailing away, and we had a technical breakdown in the middle of his sermon. But fortunately, we were able to reconnect. So I'm confident that we're going to be able to reconnect Dr. Brown momentarily.
Meanwhile, Elder Edmond, have you seen Dr. Michael Smith says that when he was night dean at Oakwood, these standards were in place and enforced. He totally supports Dr. Brown. We are peculiar people, he said. So in 1999 to 2002, that was already happening. It's not something new, as she said at the beginning.
Oh, when I was a student, and that was back in the dark ages. But when I was a student, you had to clear out of the dormitory, and they would, in those days, they would go check your room. They would do room check to make sure you were gone. All right, Dr. Brown.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if you cut yourself off right when we were talking about money. I don't know if you did that. Okay. Okay. So go ahead and tell us again. You talked to us about how the regional conferences stepped up, and made significant contributions to Oakwood to help you balance your budget. So pick up from there.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. You are back.
All right.
Oh, we lost you
How about
again.
now?
Okay.
Now is the second time, Elder Edmond. I mean, this time she don't want to talk about money for sure.
She doesn't want to talk about, yeah, I need to come up with another question. Well, we appreciate the patience of our audience. As Elder Pancorbo said, we're experiencing some weather issues there in Huntsville that may be affecting uh, uh, she that that may be affecting her internet feed.
Our
And she,
producer, Elder Edmond, is telling us that she does want to talk about money. We
yeah,
don't want to.
is that her? Yeah.
No, Pastor Subori, he's telling that
Oh,
she's trying to, but the problem is, we know. It's just we're making a little.
okay. When she comes back, after she talks about money, we got a question from the audience about upgrading the facilities,
Mhm.
and um, that is a challenge with a number of our HBCUs. So I'm anxious to hear about how um, she plans to address the facilities and upgrade the dorms and the classrooms. So hopefully we will be able to get her back.
Elder Edmond, when you say dark ages, when were you at Oakwood?
Uh, I graduated in 1978.
Oh, you
So
mean dark ages?
yeah, I graduated. So how long ago was that? That's 47 years ago.
Now it looks like she's back.
All right,
Okay.
let's try this money thing one more time because it's really good news. So I'm
Okay.
the enemy that's trying to cut us off. So
Okay.
I said last year, as of July 1st, when we went through the finances and things going forward from our predecessor over to where we actually are now, the North American division, in addition to the regional conferences, really jumped in to assist us to try to get our books in black. And so last year, the debt that was on the books was $1.9 million. And that was last year at the end of the fiscal year before they cleared everything out. Once we received additional funding and did some additional things, our predecessor and the others, as of yesterday, we had $22,000 in unpaid bills. Last year was $1.9 million in unpaid bills. So that's a huge difference from 1.9 million to 22,000 in terms of where we are. So definitely looking much better. As I said today, when I was talking and making the announcements, we have 600 new donors who have never given to Oakwood before. And this time of year, we're at 3 times the amount of where people would actually be giving money for Oakwood in terms of where we are and what we're doing. So we're doing so much better. We had a meeting with the bank yesterday to talk about where we are. They're very pleased that where we are and next steps. We're literally in an audit process right now as we speak. Won't have the results of that until October. What we're doing an audit. The last several audits have been clean, and we're really working on making sure that we're fiscally responsible. We have a long way to go in terms of where we need to be, but much better than the institution has been in a number of years.
One of the things I discovered as we were working with the regional conferences to assist Oakwood, one of the things I learned that I did not know is the finances of the school have an impact on your accreditation.
That is right.
Yeah, talk to us about that.
So an institution can't just be academically sound and not have any money. They have to be both academically sound and financially stable. Why? Because if an institution is academically stable but doesn't have money, they could close any day. And so then the student gets stuck with courses from a school that's no longer degreed, no longer has accreditation, and you've just wasted somebody's life. So accreditation agencies want to ensure that as you're doing these things, that students really are at schools that are both financially sound and that are academically sound. And so we have to make sure that as we're moving from step 1 to step 2, that transparently some of the things that have been done in the past have been difficult for the institution. And so now we're kind of backtracking to make sure that we're following through and that our accreditation is in a safe haven. So that's one of the things that we're actually working on now, to look at the components of where that is and to make sure we're where we need to be.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Brown. Just before we move forward, I just want to say that we know that your connection is what has been disconnected. We know you are not trying to hide the numbers, and you're being pretty clear. It's just we have some people really ruffled here in Facebook and YouTube telling that we are making jokes about some things. We were just trying to fill time while you were back, and thank you so much for being so transparent with us. You say figure numbers, and you tried 3 times, and at the third one the charm. Thank you so much, Dr. Brown.
Certainly.
Now about enrollment, what it is so far this year, and does it meet your budgetary needs, or there's something there off?
So our enrollment budgetary needs, normally our budget is at what's called an FTE. That's a full-time equivalent of 1,100. And we exceeded that number. And I'm not giving out the final number because I've not talked to our board chair yet. And so I won't be giving that number out until after we talk and discuss what those numbers look like. But we're in a good position, and where we definitely need to be at this point. So in looking at that, the budget is set on a specific number of full-time equivalent students. And so we've met and exceeded that number. And so that allows us to work with some of the components of where we are and what we need to do.
Okay, two questions. One of which came from the audience. How are you addressing the need to upgrade your facilities?
Let me tell you, it is one of the most major things that is needed at the institution. And I will give a major shout out to Mr. Irving Raphael and his team. I think when he came to Oakwood 9 or 10 years ago, he had probably 15 people that were there. And now I think there's 5 of them. And so they've been cut 2/3 of what it is to care for an 1,100 acre campus, which is almost impossible. They do hire other workers that are there. So there are at least another 4 workers that they hire from a company that's a little cheaper than trying to hire people with the benefit structure, with the Adventist Church offers and all of that, and hire people for different projects. But that team works as hard as it can work. It works as hard as it can work with the grounds, in addition to the buildings, the facilities. We're working on a list of all the things that need to be upgraded. It's not going to happen overnight. If you look at the grounds now in the last 60 days, they are beautiful. They just won the beautification award again this year because they work really hard to make sure that things are taken care of. As one fun fact, it takes 1.5 weeks to cut the grass at Oakwood because you're cutting 600 of the 1,100 acres. The other 500 doesn't even get cut. So of that, it takes a week and a half. By the time a person or 2 or 3 people start that process, in a week and a half, they start all over again. And so you're doing that in addition to, we own 40 buildings, trying to get those fixed, not in addition to housing and other components. We simply need more people in order to do what it is we do. I can't add anybody else to the budget right now because the budget's been set, but facilities, to have people there to fix what we need to fix and to do upgrades is simply some of the things that we're doing. I've suffered through the facilities piece. Sometimes my internet at work won't come on. The office that I inherited had to be at least 17, 18 years old. One of our donors gave me a private 3-tier gift just to replace the carpet and paint the walls in my office, which is just being done now. So we wouldn't use university funding for any of that. But I literally came in, and once they took out all of the furniture that was more than 20 years old, took down the 20-year-old curtains, pulled up all the other pieces, I was left with a very old desk and 2 unmatching chairs. And so I am suffering, no furniture in the conference room, very, very old things. And So I'm suffering from the facilities upgrade need as well. When I walk upstairs in Blake and look up and see the 2 lamps that are up there that look like something from my grandmother's kitchen, it just takes me out. We do have some nice facilities. We're opening Peters Hall. We're doing that on Thursday, September 25th. And that occurs probably at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon with walkthroughs and mini concerts. And we're going to do the dedication to the building on that Thursday. So that's a beautiful brand new building that's open. Carter Hall has had some major renovations. Peterson Halls has some major renovations. Cunningham Hall has had some major renovations. We moved all of our student services into Cunningham Hall in July and August so that our students could do a one-stop shop with whatever they need to do. And so that space looks lovely as well. Wade has had some upgrades, but still needs some more. And Edwards has some upgrades, but still needs some more. So while everything may look bad, everything is not bad. We got some spaces to work on. I want somebody to donate money so we can power wash the silos. They bother me every day that I see them. But again, I think the silos should be power washed and beautiful. But it's probably going to take, I don't even know how much it would be to power wash the silos, but I would imagine it'd probably be close to $10,000. I don't know. But they're just different things that we need to have done at the university. These things didn't occur overnight, and they're not going to be fixed overnight. So we're doing the best we can to really try to upgrade the facilities and to work on them. The students' rooms, the dormitory rooms are priority over offices and anything else. And so as we get those fixed, and little things like we fixed the smoke detector 2 days ago that was buzzing consistently, still working with buzzing, little things in order to make sure that our students are comfortable. The student facilities are paramount, and then everything else comes after that. So hopefully anyone who wants to upgrade the facilities, I'm happy to help you do it, to tell you what it is we need to have done, for you to recommend something. We just need funding. We need people to give from their heart and to really give funding. And they can give funding and say, I want to replace the water fountains in all the buildings. We'll use it for that. They can give restricted funding to say, I want to do X, Y, and Z. As long as it's not illegal, immoral, or unethical, we will definitely do what it is they want us to do with their funding.
Okay, continuing on with the theme of facilities. We have been talking about a health and wellness facility for probably 20 years. So can you address that?
I can. I would love to be the person to do a health and wellness building. I'm into health majorly. I exercise several times a week. I use the Dryson Center at Loma Linda every single time I went to work. I've used trainers and everything else. So I am big into health and wellness. If somebody gave me $5 million, it would be to use it to put up a health and wellness center. And so that's a major piece. But before we can put up a health and wellness building, we've got to really upgrade the facilities, the dorm rooms, the classrooms. We got to clean up the low-hanging fruit first. And then once we get all that cleaned up and where debt is very limited, then we'll start to look at a health and wellness building, unless somebody like Advent Health gives us some significant money towards that, or a donor gives us significant money towards that. But I can't go do a health and wellness center when I got dormitories and classrooms which are in disrepair. So I've got to fix home first before I try to build something bigger. I think that's one of the problems from years past, in that sometimes we are so interested in building new things that we don't take care of the old things, that we don't put deferred maintenance in for things that need to be taken care of, a significant amount of money. So it's going to get very old very quickly if we don't put money in to deal with deferred maintenance.
Okay, we keep getting questions
on
facilities.
I love it. So I asked for a bid on the health and wellness center last week, and I'm glad I asked because the Lord is gracious. $60 million.
60 million.
60.
Oh my.
Yes. I do have a number, and it is $60 million for us to do that. Now, that's brand new with all the bells and whistles in it. It would be probably back where we have the natatorium and the MAC and all that, because all that would be inclusive on the back end of the campus, would be a state-of-the-art center. Do we need 60 million to start it? No, but we need at least 45 million to start it, and then we'd be able to try to fund the other 15 million for the building.
Okay, I walk every day, and sometimes I walk. Part of my walk is through the campus. That's what I do. I either go to the Y, or if it's not too hot, I walk through the campus, and I pass by the music building. So tell us where we are with the music building.
The faculty and staff will be moving into the music building on this coming week, and we're having the grand opening on Thursday, September 25th. I can't give you a time. I don't know if it's 2 or 3 o'clock, but the music building will be open on the 25th of September. So we're excited. It's absolutely beautiful. I was able to do a walkthrough last week, and I don't want to spoil it and tell you what it looks like, but it is absolutely beautiful. There's a part 2 of it that they're hoping to build out towards Carter Hall. That's going to be about another $5 or $6 million. But we're starting right now. The music rooms are beautiful. The office spaces are beautiful. The auditorium is beautiful. It is just absolutely lovely.
That is
the buildings are flipped. So the front of the building is now towards Oakwood Road.
Okay.
And the back of the building is towards Carter, but you can't really tell because the back of the building is beautiful. But the way you tell the front of the building is that there's a roundabout to drop people off so that it's flat for handicap accessibility, so that they don't have to use any steps and they can get out right there and walk into the building and enter into the building that way. So if you're trying to come in to see anything or you're a senior citizen, no steps. There's an elevator in the building. And so they would take the roundabout right on the back side of Oakwood Road, right on the back part of Cunningham Hall. Be dropped off right there and be to come in the building there in order to hear one of our concerts or go to a recording room or some of the other components that we have.
Okay, let's talk about the beginning, the process that led to you becoming the president of Oakwood. Okay, so tell us from beginning to end. What you woke up one day and said, "I want to be president of Oakwood." Tell us.
Okay, it's a two-part story. It's a two-part story. So I'll go to part 1. I don't know when it occurred that I remember when I was about 5 years old. My grandmother, who was deeply a wonderful Adventist woman, we would go to her house to stay some weekends, and my grandmother would have us an hour before sunset. We'd be sitting on the sofa like I'm doing right now, and we'd be preparing for the Sabbath to come. Baths done, hair done. We're ready for the Sabbath to come. And I remember reading the Adventist Review at 5 years old and saying, one day I think I'd like to write for that magazine. And probably 30 years later, I was able to write for that magazine, a column for that magazine that ran for a number of years. I don't know what day I woke up and said, I think I want to be the president of Oakwood University, but I remember I just found some plaques as I've been unpacking here in Huntsville from the USM of different things that I did as a USM officer. And as a USM officer, I remember thinking, I think I could run this institution, and I think I could run it not better at that point, but just I think I could run this institution. And there's fleeting thought gone, done. As I prepared for life and had children and life went on, and I loved being a mother. I loved raising my children. I loved home life. Those things didn't really occur to me. I was very heavily involved in my career as an ICU nurse and then as a dean and all the other things. And then I thought at one point in my third deanship, I was thinking, I think the Lord wants me to be a president, but it was at a specific institution. And because I felt like some things needed to be fixed and cleaned up, and I could actually do that. And when the Lord allowed me to leave that institution, I came to the conclusion that that wasn't his will for that season or for that time. Fast forward then to the Oakwood presidency before my predecessor, Dr. Pollard, took off. There were 3 of us that were the finalists for that process. Myself, Dr. Craig Jackson, who's a very good friend, and Dr. Pollard. We were the 3 finalists for that process in 2011. And the board selected Dr. Pollard, my predecessor, to become the president of Oakwood. And I have to tell you, I was not sad at all. There were a lot of people who were sad and a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth, but I was not sad at all. And so I went back to my job, finished up what I needed to do, and I saw how the Lord continued to do what he needs to do. I still felt like I needed to be a president, but I didn't know where. And I also knew there would have to be an Adventist institution, because working at non-Adventist institutions are very difficult. And the higher up you go in administration, the harder it is to keep the Sabbath. And even at Pine Forge, Oakwood, at Howard, running my own college, I had over 1,500 students, which is more students than I have at all of Oakwood now. And we ran our own colleges. So it wasn't, their deanships are like presidencies. You run all of your own college, which again was God preparing me for the last 10 years on how to build enrollment and how to run a college. And so in running this college, I still felt like, I probably need to be a president, but I'm really good. I was very comfortable. And my mentor, Dr. Joyce Woods, she would talk to me and she would say, you have to be a president. You have to be a president. I'll be like, I don't know, Dr. Woods. I'm telling you, the Lord has told me that you're going to be a president. The Lord has told me you're going to be a president. The Lord has told me you're going to be a president. And even a year before the presidency, this time came up at Oakwood, she would tell me. And then I had another mentor who was a president at another institution, and he would send me jobs for presidencies and provosts. And I remember him sending me one for Prairie View A&M in Texas. And he said, you should look at this job. I think this job is for you. It's for presidency. And so they're just both speaking to me saying, God is telling us you really need to be a president. You really need to be a president. So I went through a number of searches, and before it would get to the point where I was going to be selected, I would pull out. I was like the runaway bride. I just didn't feel that was what the Lord wanted me to do. And even in January of 2025, I went through a search as a hospital president because I love hospital administration. And as I was being offered position, I just felt like this is not for me to do. And so I did not follow through on that process, even though we were right there at the door. And so then when Oakwood came up this time, I was still very tenuous. My children were both like, they're Oakwoodites. They were like, Mom, no, it's not the time. You're doing well at Howard. Things are going well. You need to stay where you are. The salary is going to be significantly different. Life has been changing. Just don't do it. And then my son finally changed and said, Mom, do you want to be in the belly of a big fish? If God is telling you that you need to do it, you need to do it. But I have 3, my brother Daryl, my college roommate, another friend of mine, and I have a male friend that's my best friend, Oral. And he said to me, Gina, I want you to pray about clarity and courage. I want you to ask God for clarity and courage. Ask him what he wants you to do. And so I prayed that prayer. And then my pastor, William Joseph, preached a sermon one Sabbath about being in God's will. And I said to his wife, this is the worst sermon I've ever heard in my life. But the Lord was speaking directly to me about being in his will. And so I was about to pull out the process of Oakwood as well. I had gotten an increase of salary at Howard and was very happy about where I was and what was going on, and went through the process at Oakwood and just felt the Lord saying, this is where I want you to be for this season. There's some things I need you to do here, and I'm coming soon. And this is going to be the last generation. And so there's some things I need you to do at Oakwood. And so I really prayed about it. I got my prayer closet. I talked to my mentor and just really bathed it in prayer. And I can tell you 2 things. One, I'm not here of my own volition. I'm not here because I want to be here. I'm not here because I wanted to be. I didn't even realize that I would be the first female president of Oakwood. Never crossed my mind, went across my head. I'm here on assignment. I'm here on assignment that God has told me that I need to be at Oakwood for this season, and that there's some things specifically that I need to do. So I really try to take my focal point from God. to have this vertical relationship with God. I love Instagram. I love Facebook. I've been off of both of them for the most part since I've taken this job, because people are going to say what they're going to say. And if I get caught up in the whirlwind of that, I'll come off the wall of what God has put me here to do. So my focal point has really been to have this vertical relationship with God. And there are so many people who are praying for me. I can feel the prayers even when I can't buoy myself up. And I'll give you one example. There's a prayer team out of New York, Sister Pastor Patricia Langley and her team. They pray for me 7 times a day. And even today on my way home from church, we were supposed to have a special prayer today because they were doing a prayer and fasting ministry in New York. And so even on my way home from church, all the way home, they prayed for the students. They prayed for the faculty. They prayed for the staff. They prayed for the administrators. They prayed for the community. They prayed for the jury concerns. They prayed for the Sabbath concerns. And so these things are constantly being bathed in prayer. It doesn't mean that everything I do is going to be what people expect it to be. And I'm not going to be Ellen White or Ellen Black or Ellen Brown and get it all right. I'm human. And so I will make mistakes. But my focal point, again, is to stay focused on what Jesus has called me here to do. And there's no doubt in my mind that I'm being called here for the purpose of being a president for this season. Should God close my eyes and that this is not the last generation and he chooses to delay his coming, I will know that I was here out of obedience to God and on God's assignment for this time. Is it hard to be here? Yes. My kids, everything I did in DC, I love, my friends are in DC. My job was in DC. My home was in DC. It's a very different vibe here in Huntsville. I'm glad I went to school here so that I would understand the vibe. I know how to find Stanley's and Slotskis, and I eat in the cafeteria every week. But I say all of that to say it's a very different sphere to come here by myself, pretty much, and to just be here doing what I feel God has called me to do. But I will tell you this: I have peace of mind. I sleep very well at night. I don't have worry that I'm not doing what God has called me to do, because I know I'm in God's will.
Dr. Brown, I have a question, because being president of Oakwood, it sounds like a lot of work. So how it was your first day as president of Oakwood like, and how it is a typical, if we can ask for a typical day as president like?
Sure. So my mom, before my mom died, when I was a dean at Howard, and my mother said to me long ago, she said, your day is too full. She said, you need to take a day where you take no meetings at all. And you need to take a day where you don't check email until the end of the day. I wish I followed all of her advice as a music teacher. But my first day was meeting with the officers, the 5 vice presidents. It was meeting with Truist Bank with 4 other stakeholders to talk about Oakwood's finances and where we actually were, and to really start trying to have one-on-ones with people who were there, the vice presidents and all of that. My day 2 was a day of the same, of having meetings, trying to catch up with what needed to be done. I started working without pay probably March 28th in terms of just trying to meet with Dr. Pollard and others and trying to figure out what's going on with Oakwood. But of course, you're learning. It's a continuous learning curve. And then I needed to fairly be able to close Howard down without stealing time from them. So really being able to work through all of those processes. My third day on the job was flying to General Conference. So that, and then from General Conference, I came back a few days early from General Conference so I could come back to the office, because my next day I needed to be at the Southern Union Leadership Retreat. And so then I spent a week there, and then I came back a little early. Then I needed, so it's constant meetings, constantly trying to find out what's going on, working with the accreditation, trying to find out all the pieces that are there. And there are lots of things I still don't know. There are lots of things that I still have not been given information on. So I'm driving not completely blind, but with a lot of deficits of things that I still need to find out about. And again, it's been 65 days, maybe Sabbath, maybe it's day 66, I don't know. But it's been a short period of time. We're moving, we've moved quite a number of things, you know, again, walking to every dormitory, talking to every dean, talking to the students, moving people from Blake Center to Cunningham Hall, working with the finances, trying to get some things paid off, trying to work with vendors, trying to look at contracts, trying to look at where our money has been and where it's going, what needs to stay, what needs to be changed. Do I need to lay off anybody? Do I need to add more people on? Do I need to find more help for facilities plan? Do I need to figure out some student issues? Do I need to have a town hall with the USM because they're worried about jury and the Sabbath? Do I need to attend a USM event? Do I need to attend a volleyball event? Do I need to attend a cookout for the students? Do I need to go to AYM for the students? All those things. My weeks are 7-day weeks. And I said to the Lord the other day, you clearly said 6 days shall thou labor. And so I'm learning how to do exactly what my mother said, where I take a day where I just focus on no meetings at all and try to catch up with things that need to be done. But because there's been so much that needs to be done, it's been very difficult. And mastering the component of no email until the end of the day, I don't know how that one's going to happen.
Okay, 2 questions, and we are moving towards we're running out of time. And this has been great. Thank you so much, Dr. Brown.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so 2 questions, and the second one is a 2-part question. You've been, as you mentioned, you've been president for 65 days, give or take. Tell me one thing that you know now that you wish you had known 65 days ago.
Budget. I wish I had a clear statement of the finances. It doesn't mean I wouldn't have taken the job, but I wish that I would have had a clear record of who's here, who makes what salary, the complete budget for the university. Those things I wish I had 90 days ago, so that I could have made some adjustments. But I wasn't the president at that time, and you can only have one president at a time. So my predecessor was still the president. He did what he felt was best for the university. I honor that for him. I have nothing to say about that in a negative vein. But when you come in running a little behind the treadmill, you are running you're running at a way that allows you to really just kind of try to catch up with what's going on. So like I mentioned, my first meeting was with Truist Bank, and that was on day 1. And so when you do that, when you have those meetings, it really makes a difference in terms of where you are and what you're trying to do. I hope that gives you an answer to your question.
Yes, it did. Now, so here's part 2. What do you like? Give me one thing that you really enjoy about being president of Oakwood, and then give me one thing that you say, boy, I really wish I didn't have to do this.
One thing I love about Oakwood are the people who work there. Some of the people are just absolutely wonderful. They work 7 days a week too. They are there. They don't complain. They are there because they absolutely love Oakwood. And when you get people who absolutely love Oakwood, there's nothing better than people who absolutely love Oakwood. They will do whatever they need to do. So many people who work at Oakwood who make such a menial salary that we're going to work on gave money in order for us to get to that $500,000, inclusive of myself. But so many people who make significantly less than an average teacher or faculty member or facilities person gave money so the students could clear. A lot of the faculty and staff had students staying in their home until they could get clear. So I love the fact that people who work at Oakwood, not everybody, but a large component of those who work at Oakwood absolutely love Oakwood.
All right, now tell me the opposite end. What do you have to do that you say, boy, I really wish I didn't have to do
I
this?
really find it extremely difficult to have to explain at a Seventh-day Adventist institution of higher learning why we don't do certain things. That is that's behooving to me. I'm behooved by that on so many different levels. This is who we are. And it's like, did no one explain to you where you were coming? It's like sending a friend of mine went to Pine Forge and she sends her daughter to a Catholic school. She's no longer Adventist, but she grew up Adventist and all her mother's still Adventist. And she said to me, Gina, I don't understand these Adventists. She said, my daughter goes to a Catholic school. We're not Catholic. We don't even like the rules. But we knew when we came to this school, there are certain things. She's got to go to mass whether she wants to go or not. There's certain things she can't wear whether she wants to wear them or not. There's standards that we have here because these are the rules. We don't like the rules, but these are the rules. And so I find it amazing that people, all Muslims from all over different places or whatever, that none of them that they have the same thought process, but not at our school. It's like we want to change the rules and make it very different and all of that. And I just don't understand that.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. This is going to be my last question. Attracting and keeping talented teachers is becoming more and more of a challenge, especially, as you say, with a denominational pay scale. How will you address that?
I am praying about that, and I'm trying to work on if I can get the budget situated to where it needs to be and stabilize the accreditation and all the programs and do what needs to be done. Then my next focal point is increasing not just the teaching salaries, but also the staff salaries. Both need to go up. And one of the things that I did get to do probably about might have been last Monday was to sit with our interim HR director with a big gigantic screen on the wall and pull up as many salaries as we could and look at the salaries, look at where people who don't work there, why they're on the screen, people who work there, why they're not on the screen, and to really try to get some cleanup done with the system. So that's very important to me that we pay people. The Bible says that you pay people according to their wages and according to the value of where they are. And we have some very valuable people. We've lost some very valuable people. We've had a number of people who have left the institution with Ph.D.s who are making $47,000. I had administrative assistants at Howard who made more than $47,000 with no degree. So that's very painful that people have student loans and other responsibilities and other things, and they're being asked to work for wages that are far beyond or far below where they need to be. And our staff as well, who are extremely dedicated. So salaries are extremely important to me. It's something that I plan to work on. It is on my priority list. And again, Rome wasn't built in a day. So there's so many other things I have to get cleaned up before I can even look at that. But trust and believe it is a major part of what it is I want to do. Before I build a health and wellness building, I've got to address all of those components. I have a whole list of them. I have a 120-day State of the University address on October 29th. It will be telecast on YouTube or whatever. It's going to be open to anybody who wants to come and to really talk to people so that they'll understand and know who we are, what we're doing in that first 120 days. And so I really want to make sure that we work through those components so that we're being very transparent in what we do.
Okay, Dr. Brown, we are just about out of time. I've got 3 questions to close out. Here's the first question. You probably have heard a million times, you're the first female president in the history of Oakwood. Are there any special challenges or pressures that come with it?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm sure there are. I've just been in a vertical with Jesus. And so they'll probably pop up later, but I've not had any students be disrespectful. I've not had any faculty and staff be disrespectful. I think that the Lord, in allowing us to really work through getting the students financially cleared, has allowed them to see that I'm serious and I'm about business. The pastoral components of the job with the pastors have been very warm and inviting. I have not experienced yet face-to-face problems with it. Now, Facebook, Instagram, yes, everybody is a Monday morning quarterback. They can tell you how the game is supposed to be played until they sit in the seat and play the game. And I find that hard to understand that we're explaining to other people who should understand what it is we believe and who we are. This would never be an issue if we were a Catholic school. Wouldn't. Liberty University, who has the largest enrollment of a of a parochial school, will not even allow public display of affection on campus. People complain about it. It's all online. They complain about what they have to wear, but yet their enrollment continues to go up every year.
Okay, question 2. It's 2030. You've been president for 5 years. Give me 3 measurable goals that you hope to have accomplished in that 5 years.
Students who have a close relationship to Christ and understand what we're about and come here because they want to know who we are and want to be better Seventh-day Adventist Christians. The second one, fiscal responsibility in terms of having a completely, not just balanced budget, but an increase in our enrollment, in our books being in the black, and us having an increased salary for our faculty and staff, and our tuition not continuing to go up, but being at a way where anybody can afford it and to have scholarships and money and finances for that, and to clean up our campus facilities in a way where people come on campus and every building is in pristine shape. Everything is orderly, and you can go into any building and not be concerned about what it's going to look like. And this is all in the same number 2. So, and making sure that we power wash those silos so that everything you see at Oakwood is responsible. And the third one would be, if I had to put up one building, it would be to have a health and wellness center that has the field that the kids can come into and do basketball and swim and do everything else, but the community can use as a Y, where they would come in and where we would have a dressing center where you could do certain things there, and just really have a beautiful health and wellness center where we sustain our mission of something like Wildwood or UG Pines or whatever, where we have the message and we proclaim the message and we put it out there.
Last question. Let's pretend, and it's going to take some serious pretending, but let's pretend I had $5 million to give to Oakwood. Tell me 3 things you would do with that.
5 million as of today, right? Not 5 years from now.
No, today.
5 million as of today. I'd go through and I'd probably clear senior balances of anybody who needs to graduate that's going to need help. So I would pocket some of it away to make sure that our seniors can graduate. All of our seniors can graduate in May. So I put away whatever that needs to happen for that. I was going to say I would tithe it, believe it or not, because I believe that God is an honest God. If you give too much, he'll give it back. I would look to see if there are any immediate needs of things that need to be taken care of. So let's say if there's some mold somewhere or something that needs to be taken care of. And then I may take $1 million of it, even if it was only $1,000 per person, and give a bump to our faculty and staff.
Dr. Brown, thank you so much. This has been so enlightening and interesting. And thank you so much for sharing your time today. There have been a number of people, I think you saw it on the screen, saying we're with you, we're praying for you.
Amen.
And that certainly goes for the people in our office. So thank you so much for being with us, and may the Lord bless you as you continue to lead our school.
Thank you for having me, Pastor Emmons, and thank you so much, Pastor Pacheco. I appreciate both of you and appreciate our audience being there. I would ask you guys, please pray for Oakwood. Pray for Oakwood. Pray that God would give me the leadership that I need, and pray for our school.
All right. God bless and good night. All right, Elder Pancorbo. Quite a discussion. And we appreciate Dr. Brown, and we will continue to pray for us. Okay, what's going to happen next month?
Next month at October 4th, we're seeing new faces. If you go to our building, you'll see that downstairs we have a wall with the pictures of the presidents, and some of them have been changing, and some of them are going to continue changing during the next month. So some vice president has changed already. So next month we're going to talk with these new faces inside our regional conferences, October 4th at always 4:30 p.m. Central Time, 5:30 Eastern Time.
Very good. We look forward to that. All right. Thank you, Elder Pancorbo. Miss Jackson is ill today, and we want to wish God's healing on her. We missed her today. So if you, let me say to our audience, if you join later, you might find it useful to go back to the beginning of the program and to hear everything that Dr. Brown has said about the various issues that she is confronting and the state of our school. So we want to encourage you to do that. Pray for us, Dr. Elder Pancorbo, to close.
Of course. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you so much for your school, for Oakwood, and thank you so much for the 12th president, Dr. Gina Brown. Please help her, and please help all the faculty of the school and all the people that are sending the students and everything that is around this school to lift your name and to prepare people so we can go home with you as soon as possible. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
A great conversation with our president. We thank those of you who've joined us. And for Elder Pancorbo, I'm Elder Edmond. Thank you very much for being with us, and good night.
First Sabbath Series. Discover the stories. Explore the legacy. Be part of the conversation. Your hosts, Dana C. Edmond, Rebecca Jackson, and Gerson Pancorbo. This month, we will talk with Dr. Brown about Oakwood University. First Sabbath Series.